The Sims series has made quite a few headlines over the past few years, albeit for all of the wrong reasons. You may have heard the announcement that The Sims 5 would never hit shelves made in late 2024, or perhaps taken a peek at the buggy $30 Sims Legacy re-releases EA coughed up earlier this year. More recently, Electronic Arts has found itself in hot water over the $55 billion Saudi Arabia deal that was just inked down, which lost them multiple high-profile Sims content creators. As time has ticked on and the decades have gone by, one of the most popular and prolific game series of all time has been left to float face down through a litter-clogged canal. With no carved-out future in sight and a history of less than advisable business decisions surrounding the IP, the Sims brand is currently living in a dark age of sorts. Thankfully, or perhaps tragically, a few of its long-lost brothers and sisters were there to welcome it into the murky water with open arms, and those poor souls are the topic of today's video. With the help of abandonware archivists and dedicated little internet freaks, the vast majority of Sims content has been well documented, and few projects from the family have been lost to time. That is not, however, to say that nothing has slipped through the cracks, and I've collected a few of these unloved pieces of Sim biomatter that deserve to see the light of day, or at least deserve to be in a video that you watch while you eat dinner or clean the bathroom or something. Let's talk about them. The benchmark life Sims we know and have mixed feelings about today were not the first in their lineage, instead descending from a much more pixelated ancestor. The original Sims was actually an offshoot of the city management simulator SimCity, initially launched in 1989 for PC. This simple construction game received several installments before its prettier, flashier younger sister blew it out of the water, but it never managed to reach the same heights that The Sims would later climb to. I'm sure you're fully aware that The Sims made waves and proved itself to be a well-timed step up from its predecessor. However, after seeing the success of the launch in 2000, EA said, what if we went backwards? They conjured up the idea to combine the larger scale and city planning aspects of SimCity with the liveliness of The Sims, bringing us the scrap title of Simsville. The game, which officially began development sometime in 2000, was intended to wrap the experiences of both titles into one big moving diorama. In the same fashion as SimCity, players would be able to design a town by filling it with homes, businesses, and decor. Each individual house would add a new family to your suburban paradise, which could either be selected by the player or imported from your Sims save file. Any households that carried over would spawn in with their net worth and personalities from the other game, as if they'd simply packed up and moved. For any younger people watching this, owning a house used to be attainable and realistic, so it made sense to be in a life sim, unlike right now. Instead of managing the needs of your townies directly, their happiness was determined by amenities placed around the area, like grocery stores, businesses with job openings, and hobby centers. Sims would have to be able to earn money in order to inject it back into the economy, so employment had to be available if you wanted your town to thrive. That is, if they even liked the recreation you had on offer, which would be determined by families' traits. The happier and wealthier your slice of suburbia became, the higher your city rating would climb. Funnily enough, there's very little information on what the hell raising your city rating does, but you could apparently do that. The game supposedly centered around a balancing act of keeping both your families and businesses thriving in an equilibrium that benefited both parties. If you couldn't keep the Sims that you housed quenched, fed, and smiley, their homes would fall into visible disrepair, and they would eventually leave your town in the dust altogether. According to a GameSpot Q&A with the title's executive producer Christine McGavran, Simsville would bring a whole host of exciting features with it, including a 3D landscape, changing seasons, and online integrations. Not multiplayer yet though, that would not hit until the Predator bouncy castle that was The Sims Online, which I will cover one day. In this particular interview, a lot was kept very vague. McGavran wouldn't give exact numbers on how many career paths would be available, or if Sims would be able to age. Simsville was initially intended to release in May of 2001, but the date was seemingly pushed back at some point to the first quarter of 2002 for unknown reasons. On September 21st of 2001, Maxis officially announced that they had suspended work on the game due to quality control concerns, citing worries that the gameplay was less compelling after the first city construction phase. The project was reportedly about 60% done at the time it was scrapped, with team members being transferred to work on other Sims installments such as The Sims Online and SimCity 4. The Lost Media Wiki currently lists any actual builds of the game as entirely lost, with very little gameplay footage being available on the web. We do have a few surviving relics, which I've been showing you throughout this section, because what the hell else am I supposed to put on the screen? So far, the game's E3 demo from 2001, trailers included with other Sim series discs, and a few lone clips of actual play have been uploaded online, along with some miscellaneous advertising material. Gaming news outlets at the time suggested that EA wasn't being entirely truthful about why the game was left to rot. Either way, elements of the game were supposedly integrated into other Sims projects. Hot Date, an expansion pack for The Sims 1, brought back the idea of a larger neighborhood, and SimCity 4 executed the concept of family personalities in the City Sim format. I honestly have my doubts that we'll ever see any of Simsville's code or a more advanced version of the prototype in the future. It kinda seems like nobody was crying and throwing up out of devastation when the idea was laid to rest, but who knows? There hasn't been all that much of a large-scale effort to find assets, so there's a possibility we just haven't pulled the right strings yet. But at the moment, Simsville itself remains in cancelled video game heaven, or hell, or purgatory probably purgatory. May she rest in HOA fees and odd suburban liminality. Now, a cancelled game is, all things considered, pretty likely to become lost media. Prototypes aren't often made available to the public, and without an official release, it's a big task to archive them. You can't store away data that you don't have. Today's second misfit, however, was not simply abandoned in the cold, dank crypt of the Maxis offices. No, this game had a full release, even being free to play for its entire 2-year lifespan. This game lived, it saw the light of day, it had a family. Despite racking up over 65 million players, this project fell to the same awful fate as Simsville. How could this have possibly happened, you may be asking? One word: Zuckerberg. I mean, okay, this wasn't directly his fault, but we'll get to it, and I like blaming things on him. During the godless era of Facebook games, you could not walk past a computer screen without seeing the brightly colored hellscape that was Farmville. I made a Facebook account for the sole reason of helping everyone I knew water their fucking crops, and I still haven't forgiven any of them for the hours I spent on that website. Social networking games attracted millions of players to the rapidly growing Facebook in the early 2010s, letting users toil away on anything from Candy Crush to Jetpack Joyride on their desktops. If you were on the internet when this explosion took place, you likely have 2 core memories of the situation: 1,000 notifications from your Facebook friends, and a menu of microtransactions begging you to drop a couple bucks on whatever in-game currency a given game shilled. Back before everyone had Genshin Impact installed on their phones, our spending problems were grown naturally in a cornfield. Every company and their mother was racing to cash in on the FB Flash game trend and get their own flow of periodic tiny purchases rolling in. Our good friend EA, of course, was more than interested in sticking its little fingers in this new market. This brought us The Sims Social, a bite-sized Sims entry developed for Facebook. I really want to abbreviate the name of this into TSS, but I feel like that's just going to evoke images of toxic shock syndrome. I'm going to do it anyway, but TSS was first released to the public on August 9th of 2011 after being teased earlier that year at E3. The game was developed by a subsidiary gaming company of EA's called Playfish, which they acquired years prior for a nasty sum of $400 million. As of right now, Playfish has dissolved completely. Who's surprised? The game had a very distinct style in comparison to other games from the Sims IP, sporting more of a classic, cartoonish FB game look. Although Sims Social carried over many general series mechanics, the way they were implemented was often different from other games. Traits, which were usually selected during the Create a Sim process, were instead purchased with lifetime points. Lifetime points were earned through completing quests or using skill items in some cases, and were also one of 3 currencies for some reason. There were 12 traits available in total, and each had somewhere between 3 and 5 levels that needed to be bought. These traits were, and stay with me now please, Slob, Steel Bladder, Neat, Super Mechanic, Insane, Ogre, Ninja, Great Kisser, Night Owl, Expert Cook, Music Maestro, and Art Virtuoso. I really appreciate that maybe 5 of those are like traits. My favorite facet of my personality is that I can hold my piss for so long it cracks the porcelain when I let her rip. Level 5 steel bladder over here. Each of these quirks had its own benefit, whether it was an increase in efficiency or interesting social interactions. The ninja trait, for example, increased your Sim's walking speed, I guess. A few of these were vital to improving your Sim's career status as well. Speaking of which, let's talk about careers. Only 3 careers were available: rocker, artist, and chef. I'm sure you can kind of put 2 and 2 together here, but the art, music, and cooking traits I previously mentioned are related to those career paths. You're smart, you got that. Here's a sticker, love you. Each of these jobs also had 5 different levels with 3 sub-levels in between. Once you picked a path, you'd send your Sim off to work at a designated appointment time where they'd earn both simoleons and career points. Career points acted as experience, furthering your Sim's career level progress, and simoleons are just simoleons. All careers would fetch you special items specific to the profession that you chose, and once you leveled up fully, you could delete your progress and switch jobs. Basic Sim gameplay hallmarks like need meters and house decorations served as the bulk of the game, with small tweaks being present like some furniture requiring crafting. How exciting and innovative! Skills were also a large function in the game as they helped unlock certain items too. In order to develop your skills, you'd use a skill item like a computer or an easel, but all of that is pretty standard fare for The Sims. The social aspect of, The Sims Social was much more of a jump. Facebook friends acted as your neighbors, and as I said previously, could be interacted with to form relationships. Not only could you become in-game friends with other players, but you were also able to date them or enter a rivalry. Again, these were public on your Facebook, so you could use The Sims Social to announce that you have insane beef with someone in theory. Players were able to visit their friends and perform different actions based on relationship status. For example, if you were rivals with someone, you could go over to their house and insult them, prank them, or mess with their appliances. Friend interactions were also required for certain quests, such as obtaining skill items or materials for crafting furniture. This is where the non-stop, god-awful Farmville-style notification flood would come in, if you were wondering. The game's premium currency, known as Sim Cash, was used to purchase limited edition furniture or to complete tasks that would otherwise require help from a friend. If your bitch neighbor Brad wouldn't help you get what you needed to craft a double bed, you could use Sim Cash to skip the task. According to the Sim Social Wiki, which is still up today, a bundle of 35 Sim Cash cost $5, which means a single chair in this game costs $5 if this is correct. Despite that jarring number, The Sims Social was considered Facebook's fastest growing game by the end of its launch month, racking up 16 million users in its first week online. In the early days, EA's newest addition to The Sims repertoire was doing quite well for itself. However, as time passed, a lack of updates and bug fixes caused the game to fall lower and lower down Facebook's gaming ranks. Giants like Farmville and Candy Crush were still being regularly maintained even years after launch, but The Sims Social started to stagnate in the eyes of players while still requiring a lot of time, money, and effort. By November of 2012, it had dropped out of the 25 most played games on the site entirely. Of course, Facebook games kind of faded out of public favor on their own in the coming years, but The Sims Social was laid to rest far earlier than other popular titles, saying its goodbyes on June 17, 2013. The original shutdown date was actually slated for 3 days prior on the 14th, but EA is EA. In spite of the fact that this game not only attracted millions of players but was also freely available on a fairly modern version of the internet, it seems that no archives of the game's files were actually saved. Luckily, as you've been able to see on screen, we have quite a few videos to remember this round, corporate art-styled Sims, but that is currently all that's available. On a post reminiscing about The Sims Social, one Reddit user mentioned that allegedly somebody had the files on Facebook. However, nothing seems to have come of that at all. Could this game be on the desktop of some random internet user? Certainly, and I hope it is. If you happen to be that person, please post your freaky Sims images, I want to see them. It makes me sad that games from as little as 12 years ago have already slipped away, but who knows? I haven't seen many searches put out for Sims Social data either, so maybe if you have some spare time, organizing a team for it would be a worthy effort. Perhaps this forgotten bootleg imvu is tucked away asleep within the Windows download directory somewhere. If you love something on the internet, no matter how bizarre or small that thing may seem, let this video serve as a reminder to archive it. We've all been told time and time again that what you put on the web stays there forever, and in some cases that can be the truth. But treasured games and favorite websites fade into nothingness a lot more than we'll ever truly know. I hope you enjoyed this quick little stroll down Lost Sims Lane, and if you have any information on any of these titles, I would love to hear from you. Please tell me more. This isn't every piece of Sims Lost media, but I think I'm getting sick, so this is what I have the capacity for, sorry. Thank you so much for watching. All of the information in this video will be linked down below, including all of the videos that I showed on screen. Huge shout out to all of my members. Thank you so much for your support. It is so appreciated, and I will see you guys next time. Stay safe, stay wonderful, my friends, and goodbye.